And we are live. Hello and welcome to Developer Insights. I'm David.
And I am once again Justin, coming to you live from my basement in the middle of a construction zone. So if you're wondering what the humming is coming from my thing, that's probably that.
Okay, well, hopefully it doesn't get too loud. Anyway, together we are the leads on game development and design here at Codename.
Not only that, but we're also the founders.
And we are continuing to be your host for this episode and for every episode.
Unless we're not.
It's holding up so far.
So today is our first episode.
Wait, what?
Well, it's our first episode since the Trials of Mount Tiamat was released.
It is out, but wait, what?
Well, I was thinking maybe to be more cutting edge, we could start referring to each episode relative to just a random point in time.
Is that just cutting edge and confusing our audience?
Yeah, that.
I see. Okay. See, because I thought since today was September 16th and that this is our 16th episode, we could do like coincidence. I think not. Joke, you know.
Well, we didn't.
Oh.
Anyway, we are here to answer your development and design questions about Idle Champions. And if you ask us about some other things or some of our other games, we might be able to answer those as well.
And if you don't ask any questions, however, you may have to suffer through Justin's one-man reenactment of the Inspiration 4 rocket launch from yesterday. I thought the whole thing, like the real thing, was a little more inspirational than that, Justin.
I'm just so inspirational.
You're going to have to practice that.
Anyway, I see that we are already starting to get some questions.
That is true. Anyway, as always, we've pulled some questions forward from last week that we didn't get to. So we'll start answering those and we'll get to the new ones after that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Looks like we've got one here from last week about Prudence and Corazon working together with honorary crewmates and Resolve. And I believe the devs are on that, but I don't know if it's been fixed yet, to be honest.
Okay. And of course, as we've been mentioning, every stream recently, we're continuing to work on the offline progress and Modron automation updates. And while I don't have any specific updates that went out with yesterday's push, we do have a handful of bug leads on that. I know Mark's been busy working through that, and his explanation has been, as I test this one thing, then I found an error in this other thing, and then I've led off to have this error in this other thing. So apparently he's got 10% fixed on a handful of items. Anyway, it looks like he's finding issues and fixing them, so that's definitely a positive motion on that. So stay tuned for that. Hopefully we'll have some incremental releases on those each and every week. Okay, so now we've got some leftover questions from last week's show. The first one here is from Cyclops Selder. Oh, close enough. And they're asking, currently the order of applying shiny does not matter in terms of which item is upgraded first or shiny first. Will this be true for legendary items? And will the shininess apply to the legendary portion of the item as well?
So this question is probably a little bit out of date just because the legendary system is now out, but shininess doesn't apply to the legendary portion, and there's no boost to the base effect when you upgrade to legendary. So really shininess and goldenness doesn't currently matter for legendary items. That could change in the future, but it is not currently that way.
It's probably going to be a popular question then.
It probably will.
Yeah. Next question here from last week is from XCWE. And XCWE asks, would it be possible for items from chest drops to try and fill holes in your collection on that rarity, even if a higher rarity exists in that slot?
Yeah, this is a question we've seen quite a few times. And I think it was one that I was hoping that Electrum chests could maybe help out with, but there's no specific code in there. Electrum chests can just drop common, uncommon, and rare items for any of the champions in your collection. So there's always a chance that one of them might fill that hole, but they're not specifically coded to do that at this time. It is something that we get requests for quite often, and if we end up redoing the collection screen, which is something we'd like to do, and something that I think even Peter is on board with doing, then I think we'd probably look at adding that tech to the chest opening stuff.
Yeah, and for context, for anyone who's not 100% familiar with the collection screen, generally speaking, when you open a chest, we prioritize giving the character more power, so an upgrade for the champion. But we also have a screen which is only on the PC versions of the UI. So if you're joining us from any of the console platforms, you won't have access to this screen. And it shows the character and all of the different rarities of the gear slots that are available for that champion. And then as you collect those, it shows which ones that you've collected. And so if you jump from like your first item, instead of being an uncommon item, or sorry, instead of being a common item, is instead say an uncommon item, then the system isn't going to prioritize giving you that common one, except by just random chance.
Yeah.
And so I know some people who see that screen and they really want to fill all those in, and so that's what this is about.
Yeah, it's especially tough for event champions when you get gold event chests or gold champion chests, and they can't even drop the common item because they only drop from uncommon to epic. So it is quite challenging sometimes to fill some of those slots, especially if that's what you're expressly trying to do.
Yeah.
We got another question here from Zeniqua, who asks, would you consider adding a search function to the event achievement page so I can search for individual achievements by champion name?
Yeah, so this does feel like something that's going to become more and more useful as time goes on, because that page is definitely getting more more and more items on it. So I mean, I think that's definitely something we should consider. Yeah.
Another question here from last week from Roland HTG, who asks, can we get a quality of life improvement for the bug report website to be able to include a screenshot directly rather than a link to some other hosting platform?
Yeah, I mean, that's also a good suggestion. I think when we originally put that page together, we did talk about that a little bit. I don't think we have anything specifically put together for doing uploaded images to this and to the ticket system. The ticket system should also have that, just in general. I think the only reason we haven't put something like that in is because there's a little bit of overhead involved there, because we do have to confirm that it's actually an image that's being uploaded. When you let people upload files, they can abuse that in ways that are not, well, they can abuse it. So we need to be careful about that, as well as making sure that wherever we're storing those, we have a reasonable amount of management on it so that we don't run out of space or something to that effect. But I do think that's a good idea, and it certainly would be an improvement to those pages.
And there's one more question here from last week from JDog2773, who asks, could the gold coin icon be removed to allow for bigger upgrade cost text under each champion? I assume this is in the bench on the bottom. Maybe have it disappear once they're unlocked.
Yeah, so this is actually, I tagged this one because I think this is probably connected to the fact that we added the narrow bars, and the narrow bars mean that the text is now smaller. And I think there may even be, in sort of the worst case scenario, it overlaps a little bit with the button at the end. So removing the gold icon actually might not be a bad way to to get a little bit of that space back. And so I don't object to that idea as a way to make that a little cleaner.
Yeah, I think as long as it's an option, so that we're not kind of removing that icon right away for even new players, because that could be confusing.
Yeah, I mean, one of the suggestion here, maybe have it disappear once they're unlocked, is would help that out. And yeah, any player doing this would have had to turn on the narrow progress or the narrow bars to begin with. But so I don't know if JDog is in the chat today. But if he is, he can confirm that was in regards to the narrowness there, because I think that's probably what's going on there.
That would totally be my assumption.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
All right, on to some new questions.
And a lot of these questions are about the Trials of Mount Tiamat, not surprisingly. So
I'm shocked. First new question, unsurprisingly, is quick out of the gate here from Garwar. And Garwa would like to know, there's some confusion in the community and potentially in the game about how Trial's personal DPS contribution is measured. Is it based on BUD, running average, base DPS, click damage, or is it something else entirely? Help, please.
So the personal DPS contribution, the exponent of which is added to your assault party DPS, is based exactly on the amount of damage you have done during the adventure. So all of your hits added up, that is the number that we use for that. Now, it does have a strong correlation to your bud, in that generally whatever your highest hit is will be your bud, and therefore, however many times you have hit with that bud will be your total DPS in general, maybe off by a little bit here or there. So I think your bud's a pretty good analog for it, though probably a few orders of magnitude higher. It's definitely not based on your running average or base damage or base DPS or click damage or anything like that. But unless your click damage is higher than your bud, in which case, yeah, I believe click damage would be included in your total damage done during that adventure. So that is how that is calculated, and it is not really displayed anywhere in game. You just have to trust us that we're getting it right, because I'm pretty sure we are, with the exception of if you're doing more than E308 total damage, in which case it caps out there right now, but we are working on that. The second question here is actually copied. I think Super Fluffy Kitty also asked this question just a little bit later. So this person who got it in first was Lizard Tastes Good, who asked, can you please make it so teammates can join your trial for the 24 hours after it starts? With multiple time zones and all that, getting 5 people into a lobby before it starts is a huge pain and feels entirely unnecessary. And yeah, Super Fluffy Kitty asked a very similar question, saying like, our Discord was struggling yesterday to get groups in the same time to start it, and saying it's not really asynchronous if you have to all be there synchronously to actually start the campaign.
Now,
so, yeah,
you don't have, the way it's set up right now, correct me if I'm misunderstanding this, is it doesn't have, not everyone has to be there to start it, but everyone has to hit the ready up button, and then the party leader has to come back, and then they start it.
Yeah, I think it's a thing where, like, I think the way people want to use it is they want to just start the campaign and then have people kind of join in, rather than start the lobby for the campaign, have people join into that, and then come back later and start. And I mean, I think that's something we can investigate. I'm sure there's probably a way to let people join after it's started, but we just have to be very careful with that, because we don't want to. We want to make sure that we kind of keep some of the some of the stuff in place for, like, a campaign lasts for a week, and we want to make that last for a week so that people can't join if we let people join at any time, then you could just join right before the end, collect yourself some scales, and then your timer would be up in a day or two, and then you could rejoin. And so we want to make sure that there's no way to kind of exploit this kind of letting people join late system. So I think there's some stuff we can look at to maybe make that a little bit better. I think maybe joining in the first day is quite possible. Maybe we just extend that one person's kind of end date based on when they join. But we can certainly look at some of that stuff. It can go on to the quality of life list.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that we'll have to, after we've got a little bit of time with this, in the hands of all the players, and sort of see what the general feedback is. It could be that this is something that we'd like. The 24-hour grace period doesn't feel too bad, but I definitely would worry about people gaming the system if they could just join right at the end. If someone's like, "Oh, I've got one ready to go, join now, and then we'll take, get the rewards, and we can start another one together." It's not really the intention. It's intended that you play and participate. So
yeah, I think this is something we can look into once we've kind of ironed out some of the smaller bugs that are happening right now, which happily I think we actually managed to make this feature out fairly unscathed in terms of major issues. Everything that I've seen has been fixed up pretty quickly. So
yeah,
hopefully we'll get to this kind of thing, this kind of quality of life thing, sooner rather than later.
As Peter put it, there's many small fires, but no major fires. So, okay. Moving on to the next question here, which is also from Garwar. Garwar asks, why aren't the trial formations the same as the one used in Mad God? Why create a formation that only gets used in one adventure?
Yeah, this is a good question. I'm not actually sure why we did different formations for the Mad God versus the Trials adventures. I would have to check with Dupuis and ask why that was. It could potentially be an oversight where we wanted to use the same one, but I will definitely take a look at that one. So I'm going to highlight that in our good old yellow color, and we will get an answer for you next week.
Okay. And one thing I'll note here, because I did ask Peter earlier and I didn't see the response until I'm just checking now, if there was anything any sort of fixes that he wanted to let people know about. And it does sound like, and I've been hearing them talk about this one actually over the last day or so, is that there are some resolutions that you can bring up the map at that make certain buttons not visible. And so we're going to get some fixes in for that. But otherwise, well, other little things are being worked on. He has nothing that he specifically wanted to call out. So. Okay. Next question here is from Super Fluffy Kitty, who asks, what is the drop rate on prismatic vials, and where can I see what vials I have when when locked out of attempting the next trial? They aren't in the inventory, and the only UI where they're viewable is when creating a campaign, which I now cannot view because I am locked out.
Yeah, so this one's kind of linked to the next question as well. So these are both questions about the vials of Tiamat's blood that are used to do higher difficulty Trials of Mount Tiamat campaigns. So prismatic vials are purely a premium one. They don't actually drop from chests, or you can't really get them anywhere in game. And they're just there to make it easier to do higher difficulties if you don't have enough of the lesser vials of blood, which drop from the Trials of Tiamat chests. So you get those chests for beating the campaign, and then you can get the vials out of those in order to start the higher difficulties. Now, the next question is about what if we don't have enough people, or what if the person who's trying to start a higher difficulty doesn't have enough vials, but as a group, people would. And that is one thing that we are going to be looking into as a quality of life feature in the future, is to let people pool their lesser vials to start higher difficulties. So it's not something that we have right now, but it is something that we are going to be looking into later on. And then, yeah, the prismatic vials just come from, I think there's some DLC that you can purchase to get those. Let's see. Next question here. Another one from Super Fluffy Kitty. Just got all their questions in early. Really just have to randomize this list here.
We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Is that 5 questions?
Yeah. So another one here from Super Fluffy Kitty, who asks, can there be, and we've never heard this question before, I swear, can there be an increase in the number of bounty contracts that can be used at once? I have 37.8 thousand green contracts, and at this rate, I will drown in them. Well, we don't want you to drown. That would be bad.
Can you swim in the contracts? I mean, is this sort of like that Scrooge McDuck vault,
Yeah.
Where you jump in and discover that like coins aren't liquid? It just, yeah.
Oh, it's like the Family Guy version of the Scrooge McDuck vault.
Money's not liquid. Yeah. I mean, this is I wonder if this poses that we should be thinking maybe some other options to do with these items, right? Like some other way to use them.
Or some way to like merge them up or something like that, into, green into blue, blue into purple kind of thing, just so you have less of them, and then we can.
Yeah. It certainly is unwieldy to try and use, 37,000 or 38,000 of them.
Maybe the unlock cost for the next patron should be 37.8 thousand uncommon bounty contracts.
Just for Super Fluffy Kitty.
Everyone else can unlock it for 10 gold, but Super Fluffy Kitty, you're going to have to use all of your green contracts.
Yeah. No, I think some other use for those, rather than just having like a giant open that's like use every single one at once, might be something to think about.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay,
next question, shockingly, also from Super Fluffy Kitty. Last one of the day, maybe. It says, can there be a better way when assigning stat feats to a champion that it refreshes if they're usable for the patron variant you were doing without having to switch to another party and back?
It's laborious and not cromulent.
Not cromulent.
That's a word you don't hear every day.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, my thoughts on this is that sounds like a bug, that they don't immediately become available for the patron.
I completely agree that that's a bug. There never would have been the intention. You have to add it and then switch between parties.
Switch parties or reload. Yeah,
absolutely a bug. So I will tag that to have someone look into. Yeah, definitely a bug.
Yeah.
Or a really big
Next,
oversight.
yes. Next question here from Wandering Braft, who says, the Legendary Forge champion sort order is by release date / internal ID. What was the design process behind this choice rather than choosing, for example, name, slot, trials effect, something that seems more intuitive to the players?
So
Yeah,
part of the
Dave.
reason I highlighted that is because I think that's what is the design process? Someone's got their tongue in their cheek firmly when asking that, because when it comes in that order, that's a we didn't
There was
think
no
about
design
that.
process. Yeah.
That's we listed the champions in the order they came back in, and the order was by internal ID, which is the default for everything, unless we specifically go out of our way to add something. So I mean, I think it's worth flagging that that's not a good ordering for sure, and
terrible
someone
order.
should add some sort or filter, or just have an order that makes way more sense
Agreed.
than internal ID. So yeah, definitely that was an oversight. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay. Next question here is from Garwar, and he's asking, how many times can you upgrade a legendary effect?
So I don't think I actually put a cap on it. I think the costs start to get quite prohibitive, because let me actually just pull up the code here, since I've literally have it open on my screen. The cost obviously goes up and up and up and up with the number of scales you need, but also the requirement for the currency, for the reset currency, goes up and up and up and up. And so I think I think it's 3 orders of magnitude per, I don't have it here exactly, but it's several orders of magnitude more divine favor that you need per level. And I think it goes up to a point where you just won't be able to earn that very effectively or efficiently, especially considering that each upgrade you do will then cost you an order of magnitude to actually do. So I think a realistic kind of cap, I think, is around probably around 10 or 12. Some players will probably be able to push that a bit higher. And obviously, as we add more, as we increase the soft cap, as we add more adventures and variants and patron buffs and all that stuff and Modron cores, that will go up over time. But there'll be kind of a soft cap on it, and players will players who try and push beyond that soft cap will definitely have a tough time. Here's another question. Here's a question from Vovkas, who asks, can you make a secret button to level up all formation champions up to max level, not just one champion 25 or 100 levels?
What do you think, Justin? Can we do that? Can we add a secret button to level up all the formation champions to max level?
Just to say we don't already have a secret button that does that. I mean, it's a secret.
Yeah, doesn't even cost gold.
Yeah. Don't push it.
No.
What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I think in all seriousness, this is something that has been requested before, not necessarily secret, but one that's, well, as just another option on the top of that. I feel like we do have something like this in Crusaders.
Crusaders does have a buy all champion level or Crusader levels in that game, and a buy all upgrades.
And that
those
was
are separate things.
Something that was earned through spending it's earned by spending idols, right? It's earned by spending the prestige currency.
Yes, I think it's been so long since I think it's one of the very first things you can unlock. So yeah, I think it is a talent that you unlock.
So I mean, I thought, and my memory on this might be a little fuzzy because we're going on to year 5, is that originally that additional feature was something we did want to have, but have unlocked via something that you earned in game.
Gosh, I'm not even sure.
You're not even sure if you wanted to include it. I thought.
No, I'm not. Yeah, I can't remember.
Okay.
That was years and years ago when we would have talked about this.
Yeah. So my feeling was
yeah,
it was going to be something that we could add that way, and we just haven't done it. It does feel like something that either we could add as an option, or we could put in as maybe something you unlock through. I mean, maybe it's a blessing.
Maybe. Yeah. Maybe it's like a tier 10 blessing, global blessing. Unlike in Crusaders where you unlock it right away, in this one we just make you like go play it for 5 or 10 years and then you can unlock. No, I'm just kidding.
Wow, we're mean.
We're very mean today. Well,
Wow.
I'm being very mean today. I'm sorry, guys.
Okay. Let's have the next
Yeah.
question then. We got one here from Henry Leowind, and Henry says, Dev's suggestion, add some pointer to where the button of the unlock adventure for the trials is. It is somewhat hidden on the map screen with no hint.
Yeah, this is a good question. I think we were talking about this internally yesterday afternoon. I seem to recall some people talking about it, and I think we are going to make some slight changes there. But one of the other things that we're planning on doing in the not too distant future is sort of taking a sober second look at a bunch of our tutorial stuff and making sure that some of those later game features have a little kind of tutorial hint pointing you in the direction once you've unlocked it. So certainly the Trials of Mount Tiamat could be one of those things that we point people in the direction of, and there could be some other things as well. I think we don't necessarily tutorial Modrons or multi-party all that well, so those are things that we need to work on.
Yeah, that's funny. I'm just sort of glancing over at the chat here, and I see Garwar suggesting it should be the secret button or not so secret button should be purchasable with gems. Or alternately suggested after that by another player, unlocked with bounty contracts.
Oh, there we go. So, yes, 37,800 bounty contracts to unlock. One click level everyone up.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Here's a question here that from Vovkas again. Who says, regarding Tiamat trials, can you make an indicator / prediction of how long it will take to defeat Tiamat with the current DPS so the team can relax if the DPS is already enough, or press harder before it's too late if the DPS is too low?
Well, I mean, that certainly seems like something that we could do. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know that we will do it, but I mean, there's
it
a little
seems
bit
like it seems like something we could do.
Yeah, I guess it raises the question if that's something that, from a standpoint of, do we want players to look at it and just relax and then find out that they've gotten too far? Oops, relaxed a little too much. So
yeah, I mean, it is something. It's basically something that you can calculate, right? Because we show you your party's DPS, and we show you how much health Tiamat has left, and we also show you how much time. So we have all the information on there to show it on the screen. We're forcing players to do the math on it instead of doing it ourselves, which is certainly.
There's a little bit more to it than that, right? Because you do have to consider if everyone does every day's DPS, the DPS will change over every day, right? So
that's true, and I don't think we would not account for that. I think if we were doing an indicator predict, we wouldn't.
That's not a very good indicator, then, right? Like if just like if you're on day one and you have your current DPS, you're not gonna make it.
You're not gonna make it. So you better come and do some bonus adventures on the next days or two.
Yeah. I mean, that might stress people out if they don't realize the DPS is gonna go up, incrementally each day, which is gonna make it faster and faster. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean,
you could show a prediction. It's like this is your compounding DPS if you contribute every day this amount to it.
I think the problem with doing that way, and the problem with including the compounding in there, is that then people would relax, be like, oh, we've already got enough DPS to do it, not understanding that this is only true if you all show up every day and do your adventure.
Well, if you miss a day, then it predicts that you actually are going to miss all the remaining days, and then shows you got none.
So it's like a heuristic. It like looks at your previous 8 weeks of trials adventures and says, oh, well, you've missed 30% of your days, so we're going to take that into account. And then it actually just, tells you what you're going to have for breakfast tomorrow, because it's just that good.
It's just Google.
Yeah.
All right.
Let's see. Here's a question from OG17. They say, Trials fake chat widget, sending stone thing, showcases how the multiplayer aspect of this could be improved. Is it out of the question to have an actual Trials group chat window for there and the join screen?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. Well, I feel like this was discussed at some point, and there was a little bit of concern about putting people if they were playing with random people into a chat window like that, especially one that we're not moderating, because certainly that could go downhill quickly. I think we've all played League of Legends, so
Yeah, I mean, I think we've talked about before on our stream how like we don't have private messaging or stuff like that in the in-game chat. And the reason for that being is we don't want to enable abuse, and we don't want to enable people to be chatting in places where we don't want to be keeping a log, and make sure that we can properly moderate that. And so I think this would be another case of if we were going to do something like this, we'd have to think about it really carefully, and about how we can control for just, people being frustrated, let's say, or people being abusive of such a system. So
First one, then the other.
Yes. So it's something to consider, try and figure out exactly how we would set something like that up. But it's not going to be a near future thing, I think.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so. Okay, next question here is from Tromby.
Mm-hmm.
And Tromby asks, why is the trial formation the same as the one in the Sword Coast?
So I'm glad that you asked this question, because this gave me some context for the Garwar question we asked earlier. So I believe it actually is an oversight that the trials formation is not the same as the one in the Mad God, because the Sword Coast formation is in fact the default formation in the game for if one isn't set on an adventure. So this much like the champions being all in the same order, is one of those small fires that we can absolutely fix very easily.
Yes. Today's episode brought to you by things we forgot to think about. Okay, next question here from My Register. So I'm going to pronounce that anyway. And they're asking, are there any heroes behind a paywall, or can I collect them all just by playing the game?
There are, in fact, no heroes behind a paywall. Or paywall.
All
of the heroes are behind a playwall,
yes.
Not a paywall. Yeah, so you can absolutely get all the champions in the game without paying. You can get them mainly through time gates. There's some that you can get. Well, there's one that you can get by signing up for our newsletter. That's Hitch, and then there's one who's kind of a little bit funny, the Nerds champion, that technically you can get. You can kind of only get them if you're in the US, but technically you can kind of get them if you're not. But I can't really say how. And eventually they will end up in the gem store as well. So you will be able to get them that way eventually.
Yeah, it's certainly one of the sort of the core values of our approach to design on the game is to make sure that nothing is 100% locked out, or the main core features, or none of them are 100% locked out behind a paywall. So, although every now and then there are exceptions to that, and some of those exceptions end up being temporary exceptions, sort of like the Nerds is only for a period of time is locked out. And I think we've occasionally done, I don't know if we've done it in this game, but we have done some charity items that have been limited runs.
Yeah, we haven't done that in this game. Crusaders has a couple of charity champions that you can only get if you donate to the Desert Bus guys every year. So,
and we don't feel too bad about locking them behind a charity. So,
no,
that's right. Attack us for that one. Okay. Let's see. Next question here is from Dauntless113. And Dauntless would like to know, is the decay of your highest damage number in the trials intentional? My damage after my run yesterday has decreased 8 or 9 points from its original value.
Yeah, that is not intentional. We were just talking about that earlier in the day, trying to track that down, and we've not been able to track that down, but it's definitely not intentional. Your damage number should never go down in trials. That is not supposed to happen. If you want to pop back up a couple of questions there, I highlighted another one that we had previously skipped over.
Sure. Yeah. Here we have a question from Jesus53, and Jesus would like to know, how does slow and steady blessing interact with legendary items?
So I actually had to go and look this one up. So the slow and steady blessing, for anyone who doesn't know, increases the damage of all champions by 2% for every piece of equipment of epic rarity over all campaigns. So technically, your legendary items are actually still epic, so they still qualify for this blessing. So converting an epic item to legendary would not decrease your bonus from the slow and steady blessing.
Okay. Let me sort of highlight some of these. We're getting behind.
Yeah, we're starting to get ahead of ourselves here.
Yeah. So we got a question here from Double K575, and the question is: my memory ability is not that super great to remember what everything of every hero, but is it possible to have a champion overview where you can filter on different attributes, for example, healing, gold find, race, alignment, etc.?
Yeah, I think that'd be pretty cool to have in game. Just I guess basically a more a more complex sort of profile panel with some filtering options. And there is sort of one thing that we do want to do eventually in the game is a more complex kind of, well, the collections panel we were talking about before, but a more complex kind of progression panel that shows you, for example, like how many champions you've unlocked out of all the champions there are, what percentage of the kind of loot you've collected, what percentage of the adventures you've done, blessings you've unlocked, perks you've unlocked, patron items you bought. Basically every way we can think to create a progress bar and just create it there and put it on there. So that could potentially be part of that, is just the ability to filter by heroes and find that stuff. I know there's probably there are also some third-party tools that some people have created, some websites and whatnot that might have that ability. I'm not sure if they do. It'd be pretty cool if they didn't have it and they could add it for the time being until we can get around to doing something like that in game. But yeah, it's a cool idea. Definitely something that as we add more and more and more champions would be a very powerful thing in game. There's a question here from Wyvern, who asks, are there plans to show the equipped skins of the active trial champions on the trials page to show off your skins to other players?
Yeah, I didn't actually realize that we weren't showing the skin there.
Yeah, that would be, I imagine that would be,
I don't see that.
well, it's not trivial to do because we'd have to store, I don't store that data currently in the campaign details, but
sounds trivial to do.
It does sound trivial to do. That sounds like something we could assign to someone and they go, but it's not, it's and then we just be like, well, just do it.
Yeah, that seems I think that was brought to you by today's theme.
Brought to you by
an oversight,
Peter. Yes, let's go on to the next question here. Here's a question. We're just scrolling through these here. And Dave's trying to.
I'm trying to carefully get these marked, but yeah.
Yeah, I think
purple ones are just, we can answer that.
Yeah, so here's a question from Claudel GFX, who asks, any idea if Idle Champions is going to join the NFT/blockchain gaming hype in the near future?
I do have an idea of that, and the answer is no.
No.
We have no plans
Not at all.
For that.
No plans whatsoever.
Yeah. Okay.
Here is a question from C Squared 1901, who asks, would you consider adding a setting for place random familiar instead of always going in order from mage hand, etc.?
Yeah, so this I wonder about this question a little bit, because I know in context to some of the offline progress stuff we've been working on, certainly placing saved familiars instead of placing ones that you have available rather than the ones that specifically specified in the save is something we're fixing right this moment. But if this is actually just in terms of like pulling them out, yeah, I mean, I don't see any reason why that order couldn't be adjusted as well. Yeah, I assume it's actually still pulling it out right now, and it's probably pulling it out in order, in familiar ID order, the order that comes back from the database. Even though we have added at this point the ability to sort and filter that in the dialogue. So, and that would be a little bit weird if the order it came out in was the order it was sorted and filtered in. Well, certainly sorted. You wouldn't want to filter it, but. Yeah, I mean, maybe CS Grid can follow up with that if that's actually just for pulling them out, or if this was anyway related to the offline progress stuff. Okay. All right, moving on to the next question here. We've got one from Whimsical Leopard, And Whimsical Leopard asks, is Trials Mount Tiamat crossplay, or can I look up usernames in game and message them on my platform using that ID?
Yeah, so the answer to this is yes. All players in Champions are playing on the same multiplayer server in that way. So it's you can't tell whether somebody is on your platform or on a different platform or whatever.
I don't know what the whatever is, but sure.
The third option there, obviously,
third
your
option
platform
there.
or not your platform, or some sort of quantum platform. Oh, it looks like Martin here is letting us know that the giveaway is about to start. There's a giveaway. If you're in chat, you can type in
keyword is 16.
Word 16. It is open for a couple of minutes, so spam.
All right.
You can win a Bardic Inspiration shirt. That is pretty cool. And it's the word 16, not the number 16. Yeah. I saw a couple of people there. Okay. Fantastic.
Shirt.
Are you wearing it right now?
No, I'm not. No, the other day Peter and I were both wearing the same shirt. It was really awkward.
Oh.
No, this is my Bitwit shirt. Anyway. Okay. Next question here from OG17. Is it the intention to still move away from click debuff? And Jim? ? If Trials DPS counts clicks, then they'll be dominated by it.
Yeah, I think there is some stuff we need to do around clicks and Jim specifically to try and account for some of those ways that you can maybe get a little bit further than we would necessarily intend for you to get. So yeah, I don't know when that's exactly going to happen, but it is still kind of in the plans. I think what we'd probably do, or thinking of doing right now, is tying your maximum click damage to your bud in some way, so you can't go over a certain amount over your bud, and with Jim making it so that his Wand of Wonder doesn't necessarily work very well if you're in an area where he can't even, or your bud can't even tickle the monsters. So just ways, those are the ways we're thinking about doing it. Not necessarily saying we are going to do stuff that way, but that's what we're thinking right now for the click stuff.
Right. Okay. So we got another question here. Looking down through the list, looks like it's asked a few times, so it seems to be sort of a repeating theme, a recurring theme here, and that is this question here. This one's asked by Matt Ender, and the question is: in Trials week timing, alternatively, if you finished early, the campaign ends in 6 days and 23 hours. Well, I guess it would end whatever the remaining time was. So that we don't have an inevitable. Oh, I see what they're asking. They're asking that there's offset by an hour, so that you don't have an inevitable creep that eventually, I guess eventually they're saying it hits someone's bedtime, but certainly with that ending, we're gonna push the timing forward for people.
Yeah, absolutely. This is something that we thought about before we released, and we're like, yeah, this is going to happen. But let's just get it out, see how the system does, and then we can make tweaks to this. So it's something that we can look into. We can either adjust the end time so that there is, if you do end early, you can restart a campaign right away. And alternatively, we can look into to joining another campaign if it's still early on in that campaign as well. So those are a couple of options. But it's definitely something that we're aware of and we've discussed, and inevitably we will find a solution for that we like.
Yeah,
I think.
Promises.
Yeah. Here's a question from JFC Fuller, who asks, if you have a team member in Trials Mount Tiamat who does very little or nothing, will there be a vote to kick system as many games have?
Yeah, so this is a good question. I know we mulled around on thoughts on this kind of an issue before, and I know there was some worry too around sort of player interaction in the various ways that you can communicate. This is sort of ties in a little bit to the question earlier, if there'd be a private chat per mission, or per party.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I know players primarily go to the Discord to communicate, and we've been watching that very carefully to make sure people aren't being unkind to each other there. I guess you have two cases, and one is that someone is just their team isn't quite as good, and they're not doing as well, but it's not necessarily because they're not showing up and pulling their weight. And then you do have the other unfortunate case where someone joins and then just decides, you know what, I'm not going to check in today or tomorrow or whatever. Screw you guys. So I think we're going to watch this carefully and sort of see how it shakes out in the first couple of weeks. And see if this is something that really is a needed feature. I think it may turn out that it is, but it's something we want to be careful with, because we don't want, especially allowing players to play randomly, we don't want it to be something that becomes a problem. And I think sort of our go-to solution right now is to make sure that you're playing with people that at least you trust for that, if you can, which we realize is not always going to be possible. But if you can play with people you can play with your friends, then it shouldn't be such a big deal. But it will be more. It can be definitely more of a big deal if you start playing with just random people in the community at large. I don't know if you had any thoughts on that, Justin.
No, I think you covered it pretty well.
Okay.
It's something we're going to have to evaluate over time, much like some of the other, as you were saying, some of the other social systems.
Yeah. We'll sort of get a feel for how people are using them. Okay. There's another one here. This next one is the same question. Yep. Time slipping. Okay.
Yes, the next one here that's highlighted.
Sure. So we got here one from Phoenixian Ultimatum. Would like to know, to tag along with Gar's question, is it possible that we could see other formations in the future with trials?
Yeah. So once we fix the bugs so that it's no longer the base Sword Coast formation, and I could certainly see potentially the formations changing on the Trials Mount Tiamat from time to time. I mean, one of the things that the Crusaders has that Champions doesn't have is a kind of season dungeon system, where you've got kind of unique stuff to do every 3 or 4 months. Very similar to a bunch of other games have that kind of system. Like Fortnite has their seasons, for example, probably the most well-known example. And so I could see something like that integrating with the Trials Mount Tiamat and having some new stuff in there every once in a while. But no promises on any of that right now. It's all kind of pie in the sky. But it certainly could happen.
Okay. Highlight a few more there.
Yes, some of these seem similar to ones that we've answered already.
Yeah. So there's one here that I highlighted just because I know we did talk about it earlier, and I'm not sure if Mike missed that here. But we have a question from Mike Baldy asking, how come there isn't an option to join a private trials campaign after it is started? How am I supposed to play with my friends who have different schedules and different time zones?
Yeah. One of the things we talked about earlier in the stream was potentially looking into letting people join campaigns that have already started if they still have slots, obviously, after within maybe the first 12 or 16 or 24 hours of the campaign starting. It's not something that we're going to get in right away, but it's something that's certainly on our minds as a pretty big quality of life feature for trials.
And of course, for now, there's nothing stopping because it is started asynchronously. Players come in, they can push, they're ready to go, and then the party leader can come back. You will, of course, playing asynchronously with them, and you'll be out of sync by whatever amount you're out of sync with. But I'm not sure that's something that, that's something you're not going to be able to address. But you can start late.
I guess one thing to clarify is that the campaign time doesn't actually start until the start button is pushed by the campaign leader. So if you if you join a campaign and you're in the lobby for 12 hours, it doesn't mean that when you get to when you start it and you get to day one that you've only got 12 hours to do your DPS and do your adventure. You've actually got a full 24 hours from the time at which it started. Yeah.
Yeah, and again, for clarification, you don't all have to be there when the start button is pressed.
Yeah, you could log off, you could come back 12 hours later, and the leader could have started it 4 or 6 hours ago.
Okay, here's another question we see a lot, may have already answered slightly this episode. Haggis Buns would like to know, can we get a use more option for bounties and chests like we have for blacksmith contracts? Still limits use per action, but much less frustrating for the users.
Yeah, I think that's something when you open one chest at a time, we show a open another chest button. We don't show that button when you open multiple chests at a time, so we certainly could look into adding that. Also potentially for bounties as well. That could be a way to at least get through some of your additional bounties. Maybe not all 37,800 of them, but 50 at a time. That gets you 20 clicks to get to 1,000. So you're only looking at 600 clicks then instead of many more than that.
You wouldn't want to use them all at once, though. That just seems the same adventure go. Okay.
Yeah.
So here's this next question actually, and I'm not 100% sure if something we can do around this, but this is an interesting thought, and this is a question here from Decay. Got to be careful with pronouncing that.
You do have to be careful with that one.
Can we get a way to track achievements on the main screen so we don't have to open the achievements window to check on the progress when we're working on a specific achievement? And so one of the reasons I highlighted this is because it did look like I can definitely see this being something that players would like to see, like sort of a progress indication as you make progress is actually kind of would be a neat idea.
Kind of like a quest indicator in an online RPG of some sort.
Yeah. I mean, I play a bunch of Fortnite, and every time you make progress, the thing pops up and shows you your progress jump, and then it fades out again. So it's not sitting there.
We definitely couldn't do something like that unless we let you pick which ones it popped up for, because every single time you did anything.
Well, that actually might actually be the idea, right? Like that's if you've got a particular one you want to focus on, you might actually check it off and be like, show this one on the list. I guess kind of like what you were thinking or mentioning, like kind of like in World of Warcraft, where you pick the quests you want to track, and then those up to what is like 10, I think these days shows.
I am not sure.
I'd say
these days for me it was 5 years ago. Wow.
I'd say
I've been clean, man. I've been clean.
He's only playing classic. Yeah.
I mean, I think that's a cool idea. It's just a question of sort of how we lay it out and make sure that we're not using up a bunch of valuable screen space for that, or covering a bunch of stuff that you want to be seeing, because I mean, a bunch of stuff from the UI is already very tight, I guess I would say.
Yeah, that's true. That's why I think it would be something you'd want to either enable or that comes in and out as a specific progress is made.
Do you want to pop back up to 38 there?
Sure. So we've got a question here. This one is from Mike Baldy, and he is asking, how come none of the legendary items boost healing, health, or damage reduction? Why are they all damage bonuses?
Thanks for this question, Mike. The reason they are all damage bonuses right now is just because we just wanted to start off pretty, two reasons really. We wanted to start off pretty safe. Make sure that we weren't going to put out legendary items that could potentially break the game in some way. Damage bonuses are fairly safe. They can stack indefinitely. You don't generally have to worry about them being super broken because damage is designed to go up very quickly and very far. The problem with sort of healing and damage reduction and health, healing and damage reduction specifically, I guess, is that damage reduction is like generally a percentage of damage that it reduces down, or a fixed amount of damage that it reduces down, and they don't really scale indefinitely, or at least they don't very scale indefinitely very easily. And so you run into issues where you either have to do it in kind of a fancy way. For example, damage reduction, maybe the first level is 50%, and the second level is 75%, and the third level is 87.5% or whatever. But I think that can get kind of confusing for people sometimes into, why does my bonus from this other legendary double every time, but my bonus from this, goes up by less and less each time, when actually it is doubling, but it's just harder and harder hard to make that clear. Oh, and they're working again here.
No, that's not your stomach. It's not you're hungry.
Yeah,
I'm seeing
super
that in the
duper
chat.
hungry.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we started out with damage bonuses. TLDR, we started out with damage bonuses just to keep things pretty straightforward and pretty safe. But we could add more bonuses, more types of things, more interesting things in the future. We've certainly left that open for ourselves to be able to add additional bonus types. 2 legendary items.
Okay. So we got about enough time for maybe 2 more questions. So
Okie dokie.
when you do or read 2045 and then we'll move on to 49, and I think
Sure.
that's what we got time
Okay.
for.
Yeah. Here's a question from wait for it some, who says wait for it some question. So it's an awesome question. It says there's new achievement, legend wait for it dairy. A few months ago in Dev Insight, you read my question, but took a moment to get the reference in my Twitch name. Did my nickname reminding you about that great show inspire you for that achievement? So I can answer this one.
Did you set the name on that achievement, or was
Peter
that
actually
Peter
named that one?
So
Peter was not in Dev Insights.
100% a coincidence.
Just a coincidence.
That is, but he did. It is making that reference though.
It is absolutely a reference to How I Met Your Mother. Yeah. I think a lot of people in the office are right in the age range to have watched How I Met Your Mother. Yeah.
Okay. Last question here from Super Fluffy Kitty. Well, we said that we weren't going to get another question, but yet there they go. You said earlier that click damage was counting as part of the Trials of Tiamat DPS, but if you were running a CDB formation,
click damage based formation, I assume.
Well, it's not usually what I get that acronym for, but anyway, this is definitely not the case and is not counting champ damage from what I can tell.
Yeah, so I think you're probably right. I think we probably specifically aren't counting click damage, specifically because there are fire breath potions, and if you have a boatload of favor, click damage can outscale regular damage. So I am I'm fairly sure that it is actually only counting regular damage. So
right.
So it doesn't count click damage.
And they're saying in the chat that that's click debuff formation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, there you go.
Cool.
Click debuff.
Well, I think that is all we have time for.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Well, if we didn't get to your question this week, don't worry. You will have another opportunity. We will be live again at this same time next week. Before we sign off, though, we'd like to thank our tireless mods who copy your questions into our questions doc and generally make things awesome. Today it was Jay and Martin. Thanks to you both.
And of course, with any luck, it won't be from your basement, and so we won't have that wonderful construction noise.
Oh, hopefully not. Hopefully I'll have a nice deck by next week, though.
Right. Anyway, thanks to all of you for hanging out, watching the stream, and enjoying the game. Without you, no one here would get to do what we do.
We'd have to do something else?
I mean, this goes without saying, I guess. Enjoy the rest of your day, everyone.
Bye. And enjoy the hot mic of the ground compactor as we fade out to the outro screen.
I almost clicked the intro screen there again. Gotta be careful with this thing.